Hey, Skipperdoodle Love Army, spread love today. And go to the links in my bio for free access to all things Skipperdoodle. I hope you have a great day. Today's reading is The Adventures of Super John, Story the First, Origins, the greatest son in the universe. Well, definitely in the top 3, by Sean T. Clark of Skipperdoodle Productions. Nice, very smooth. In honor of Jonathan Clark on the 30th anniversary of his birth. For at the time, 5,293,394,164 of the world's inhabitants, September 14, 1994, started and ended like any other day. For the 4-person Sean T. and Jennifer J. Clark family, however, their lives would never be the same. Because, you see, the 28-year-old parents, already overwhelmed with the effort and responsibility of raising 2-year-old twins, had wisely decided 9 months prior to conceive another child, a decision the results of which had been successful, and that afternoon would come to fruition in the form of a handsome baby boy. 2 weeks earlier, he seemed reluctant to enter the world, but enter he did, through the efforts of his tiny but mighty mother, who delivered all 3 of her children naturally. Regardless, when the time came, the lad's eager parents and other gathered loved ones felt a barely perceptible shift in the space-time continuum as the universe sent down the cosmic wormhole a child of unusual, some would say, at least one would say, extraordinary superiority. None gathered there could have imagined the blessing they were receiving. As the child ejected from the birth canal and came skittering to a halt near the end of the birthing bed in a perfect Broadway musical pose, replete with top hat, bow tie, suspenders, tap shoes, and spats, Super John steadied himself on one tiny knee, an opposite foot, in the spotlight of the ad hoc stage. His young sister tossed him a tiny cordless mic, which the lad expertly caught in his tiny right hand and brought to his tiny mouth. With his left hand, he pointed a tiny index finger at his speechless mother and in perfect pitch broke into a Broadway-quality rendition of Swanee. By George Gershwin. I've been away from you for a long time, the prodigy's surprisingly strong, minuscule lungs thundered, and as a nurse placed a tiny upright piano between the mother's legs, the boy grabbed the surgical scissors from the implements tray, cut his own umbilical cord, hopped the forgotten placenta, sat down on a tiny stool, waited for the spotlight to catch up with him, adjusted his top hat, and accompanied himself in what turned out to be a 3-hour tour de force performance of Broadway standards. By an implausible but fortuitous happenstance, Dr. Rama, the OBGYN, was also a talent agent. From the pocket of her scrubs, she produced a contract and pen and immediately signed the boy to a 10-year exclusive representation deal, avariciously twiddling her fingers together. "Baby, I'm going to make you a star," she crowed. As it turned out, this hasty, imprudent deal and an inexplicable pass by the management of Father John Misty ended up being the only 2 smudges on Super John's otherwise impeccable superstar entertainment career. But back to the show. As his family finished their meal of crab and aged steak, Jonathan concluded the second encore with a rousing clarinet solo, wrapping up with Stoltzman's Begin Sweet World. Okay, Google, play. At its conclusion, the entire birthing team, the parents, and Jonathan's siblings wiped away tears and showered the boy with applause and money, of which the newly minted star's manager peeled off her surgical gloves and gathered her 15%. And so ended the first day. When not on tour, Superperson, as he was now known, entertained the family in their small town home with a variety of parlor tricks and superhuman feats, as well as an astonishingly well-honed tight five comedy set, which only occasionally went for cheap laughs through blue material. On one particular evening, as Super John had the family holding their sides and falling out of their seats at the backyard patio table, all while deadlifting a car with one arm and performing card tricks with his open hand, he said, "Dad, if you go into the garage to your scooter, I believe you'll find the ace of diamonds you're thinking of in the glove box." And when his father returned agog with said card in his hand, the family leapt to their feet and, with neighbors who were leaning over the fence, engaged in a 10-minute standing ovation. Yes, he was indeed an extraordinary lad. But of course, the all-pervasive bliss could not endure unabated forever, and the aging mineshaft providing their small Midwestern town with many of its jobs was not getting any younger. Okay, Google, stop. So it was inevitable that the ground would one day rumble and the thunderous cave-in would occur. When the calamitous day came, Sean and Jennifer, the boys' blessed parents, flew to each other's arms, temporarily forgetting their other children's employment in the mine, as well as their newest angel, asleep in his jewel-encrusted bassinet, a gift from Jimmy Kimmel. Super John's mother rose, gripped her threadbare shawl around her shoulders, and opened the door to find Jonathan's siblings, faces smudged like actors from the musical Annie, sobbing, and just beyond, their infant brother, cape flowing in the breeze from the field, escaping from the fetid, escaping mine air. "Up and away," the boy exulted. "I'll be home later, Ma. There's lives need saving, and it looks like I'm just the fella for the job." And changing his mind from flight to ground, the X-chromosome 1's feet spun in place briefly, like a Roadrunner cartoon, before he streaked down the street, accompanied by a sound like a pistol shot to liberate several dozen community members trapped under hundreds of feet of debris, applying rescue breaths where needed. Months later, the whole family enjoyed a Presidential Medal of Honor dinner in Super John's Presidential Medal of Honor dinner and Super John's honor at the behest of the newly elected President Harris, whose narrow victory could partially be attributed to Superboy's tireless campaigning on her behalf. His many exploits, enshrined in popular culture through songs, movies, and other public displays, are well known, so I'll not insult you with their retelling. Though, on a private note, I can say the family was thankful the rest of their days for the one whose very presence equated to the rising and setting sun for all their remaining days. Happy 30th birthday, Johnny. Thank you for bringing joy into our lives. We could not love you more than we do. You really are a great son. Love, Dad.